Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and today in the group I'm gonna talk about, there is one digital asset that completely disappeared from the conversation. We know that we've been served up all this PR of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this, but there's also, and we also know that they intentionally don't highlight XRP, but there's another digital asset that they never talk about. It's the voodoo digital asset. That sounds like a thumbnail. Let me write that down because that is a thumbnail. I know one when I hear one. It's the one that cannot be mentioned. Where'd my pen go? I'm sitting here looking for my. There it is. Got it. Okay. Voodoo digital asset. This is one that cannot be named. Okay, sorry, I'm having to write this down. And the question is it a dark horse? That also is a thumbnail. Okay, so I have to do this or I'll forget my thoughts. My dad taught me a long time ago to write things down. Let me remind everybody before we get going, and by the way, I'm going to talk about that digital asset in DAIXRP.com, the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click the join button below any of these videos. If you'd rather join through X, just hit the subscribe button. Before we get going, this is the last day. We're down to 20 hours. If you want to enter for a chance to win an all-expense-paid trip to Los Angeles, the USC versus Michigan game, I've been to one of these with iTrustCapital, who is my sponsor. And these guys have they're right down there on the field. I mean, you get to see, you get to see how big those football players coming into the end zone. It's pretty wild. They're going to do this. I don't know. I haven't looked to see when that game is, but the giveaway is going to be over in 20 hours. If you have not opened your iTrustCapital account yet, I've got IRAs and a premium custody account with them. You can get a promo code here by going to iTrustCapital.com/XRPArmy. You'll get a $100 funding bonus on new accounts. So you get free institutional custody, and this is one of the places, one out of the two that I keep my XRP. I love it, and I don't worry about all this. Is my stuff going to be hacked? I went for a decade worrying about that kind of stuff, and I don't worry about it now. 284 XRP. The market is still kind of flat. We're at 3.83 trillion in the market. So let's move along. Tim Draper says institutional FOMO is real. We're watching banks and boardrooms across America scramble to figure out Bitcoin custody. Now, every time you hear Bitcoin, put XRP in there. Companies that laughed at the idea 2 years ago are now asking, how fast can we get this on our balance sheet? Here's what I told Vince Quill on Decentralized Podcast. It's becoming irresponsible not to own Bitcoin. Any corporate treasury department that doesn't, all right, so now he's just getting into Bitcoin. But the point is, folks, it's not just Bitcoin. It is, in my opinion, it's the digital assets, because this moment in our economy and the global, what's going on globally in the economy, this moment is what I think crypto is created for. I wouldn't own a digital asset that didn't have a limited amount for anything, because I think that's the whole essence of what brought most of us here. If you're in a digital asset that where they don't have a limited amount, you need to reevaluate. And I'm going to show you some of them that do have those limited amounts that I think are the ones you need to focus on. You know, the ones besides XRP. I only own XRP, but I'm going to show you. Okay. Oops. Skip that. This is one of the guys from Bank of America, folks. This is one of the things that's coming. September may be boring. October through December, I believe we're going. Well, September may not be boring if they lower interest rates in September, which is what they're supposed to do. Here's what Bank of America thinks they're going to do. if I can get it to start. 1 second. Come on now, let's get this going. I hate it when these videos spin like this on the X.
Should really be focused on where the cutting trough in this cycle is. That's still around 3%. The Fed thinks 3% is neutral. The market seems to believe that that's credible and that the Fed will head there. Increasingly, at least for our rate strategy team, we see 3% as almost a cutting ceiling. They're going to at least cut to there, we think. And we think that the market is not fully appreciating the potential range of outcomes below 3% that the Fed could take us to. And that range of outcomes we think exists because you do have a moderating labor market. You do have inflation that is expected to peak around the end of this year or first half of next year. But we also think that you're going to have a composition of individuals at the Fed that are going to be targeting potentially different objectives than the current Fed is. And specifically what I mean by that is, think about, let's say, how the Fed judges the natural rate of unemployment. The Fed thinks that in the longer run, this level is 4.2%. They don't know that for sure, but that's their estimate. What's to stop a new composition of Fed officials from targeting a potential?
Okay, enough of that. Point is, it's coming. So is this. This is Representative French Hill talking about the Clarity Act.
Mr. Chairman, let me get your take on the digital assets legislation. You just mentioned the Genius and Clarity Acts. The Senate Banking Committee still discussing the framework for that Clarity Act. Senator Tim Scott chairs the committee, and he said that he believes there will be between 12 to 18 Democrats open to voting for a market structure on digital assets. How are you expecting this to play out?
Well, I've really enjoyed working with Kirsten Gillibrand and Cynthia Lummis, both who've been real leaders. Chairman Tim Scott in the Senate has put together a working group on the digital assets framework. The Clarity Act in the House, which I wrote, got 78 Democrat votes here in the House. Back in July, we sent that to the Senate with really a suspension level vote. We got such overwhelming support by Democrats and Republicans. I would hope that the Senate would consider taking up the Clarity Act in their process and simply making improvements to it. I think that would be a great approach. But Tim Scott and his working group and the leadership of Subcommittee Chair Lummis and John Bozeman on the Ag Committee, they all have this at a top priority, and I hope we can get this done in the next few weeks.
Let me get your take on what Larry Lindsay says about this, Mr. Chairman, because the Lindsay Group out with a report saying widespread crypto adoption is not without consequence. And the firm writes that the ramifications of the Federal Reserve losing its semi-monopoly status as the supplier of money has wide implications that are often not discussed. At the Kansas City Fed Jackson Hole Symposium that I was at last week with Christine Lagarde, a lot of people were talking about this, including Fed Governor Mickey Bowman. And Mickey Bowman said she called digital assets a seismic shift in the way we think about money, value, and the fabric of our financial system. She said that if the Fed is unable to adjust to this new technology, it will bypass the traditional banking system. What do you want to say to people who are worried that if the depositors flee to blockchain, the cheap source of bank funding disappears, and it has a real impact on the banks?
Well, I think banks will offer dollar-backed stable coins as a new payment rail through their corporate treasury functions for businesses, and they'll offer it to consumers that have a demand for it. It's not widely accepted.
It's going to force those banks to come in and participate. It's a good thing. You have to ask yourself a question. Why does Germany financial news completely...
Da operiert man auf drei.
Why does this is like the stock exchange in Germany, can't remember which city, but why do they understand XRP, but we can't even get CNBC to cover it?
Möglichkeiten bieten. Welche sind das?
Genau, also Ripple hat es wirklich geschafft, in den letzten Jahren sich als etablierter Player im Krypto-Universum, vor allem was den Bereich internationalen Zahlungsverkehr angeht, eben zu etablieren. Da operiert man auf 3 Geschäftsfeldern. Also einerseits bietet man eben Finanzinstitutionen und Banken Zahlungssysteme an, über die sie ihre internationalen Zahlungen eben kostengünstig und schnell abwickeln können. Den XRP-Token, den kann man als Brückenwährung nutzen. Was ist eine Brückenwährung? Also wir stellen uns einfach vor, eine deutsche Bank würde gern einer japanischen Bank Geld schicken, dann müssten die das erst in US-Dollar konvertieren, dann in japanische Yen und könnten es dann rüberschicken. Das kostet Zeit und Geld. Das ging natürlich eben mit so einem Krypto-Token dann wesentlich schneller und man bietet sogenannte Stablecoins an.
Stablecoins sind natürlich auch eine sehr spannende Möglichkeit. Wir wollen uns aber die ganze Sache mal im Bereich der Zertifikate näher anschauen. Aber lass uns erstmal auf Ripple als Unternehmen zurückkommen. Wir hatten gesehen, dass es in der Vergangenheit natürlich schon, was Kryptowährungen angeht oder auch Bitcoin angeht, einen deutlichen Hype nach oben gegeben hat. In dieser Zeit musste Ripple ein bisschen ins saure Gurkenglas schauen. Ja. Und das lag unter anderem natürlich auch an einem Rechtsstreit mit der Börsenaufsicht SEC, der dann final in diesem Jahr beigelegt wurde und tatsächlich das Ganze deutlich zugunsten.
So Germany understands it, but we can't get CNBC to even talk about it. Imagine that. Folks, of everything we've ever mentioned about crypto, there's nothing that would cause not just crypto, but everything to boom more than this. They're asking Trump about tariffs and if they could replace federal income tax. You just need to hear his answer real quick. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
You talked about how historic these tariffs have been, bringing revenue, additional revenue for our country. You've also mentioned before they could possibly replace federal income tax.
Possible.
Do you think that
someday it's possible? It used to be. So if you go back to 1913 is when they.
Anyway, he goes through all the reasons and history on this. You know, this isn't happening anytime soon, obviously, from what he's saying there. I don't believe politically, I personally think politically it would be too tough to make happen. Unless you get another president like Trump in after him, and you're going to have to get 2 sides of the government. It's going to have to be the Senate and the House that are controlled by Trump's people, or the J.D. Vance or somebody. Otherwise, because I think it'll take another 4 years at least to even propose something like that and think about getting it through. Polymarket CEO Shane Copeland announces that the Commodity Trading Future Trading Commission has given Polymarket the green light to go live in the U.S. Well, I think they ought to make Polymarket, instead of when they have elections and when they flash all these polls up, they need to just start showing Polymarket, because that's the one that's the most accurate. And the reason it's the most accurate probably is because there's people going on there that have inside information, I have to believe, about what's going on behind the scenes, making this the most accurate market there is. Okay, Federal Reserve has announced they will host a conference on payments innovation on Tuesday, October 21st. The Fed's in. WeBus International signed strategic partnership with Air China, unlocking access to over 60 million members, introducing future XRP payment solutions for 60 million plus Phoenix Miles members. Uh-oh. All right, this was Phil Kwok from EZA. The perfect storm is brewing. A fiat currency is no longer a store of value. Just look at how crazy inflation has become. Cryptocurrency with finite supply is now a genuine alternative to fiat. Just imagine what will happen when people realize these 2 very simple facts. So I went to ChatGPT, I'm sorry. Isn't it called ChatGPT? I think that's what it's called. I said 1,000% correct. Take note of what's on the list. Hint, it starts with an E, and it's all CNBC talks about. Top 30 cryptocurrencies with fixed supply. You will not see Ethereum on this list. In the environment we're in, this is the whole reason that crypto appealed to me when I started, and probably appealed to most people, is to get away from that Federal Reserve fiat model. This is where the whole movement started. The idea that Ethereum has an infinite supply is a joke. The idea that they have disguised whales so you don't know who controls the network is a joke. Always has been a joke. That's why ETHgate was so important. I'm not putting any of my money in digital assets that don't have a fixed supply. Meanwhile, the Tom Lee Roadshow, where the PR machine continues to prop up Ethereum, you know, it's always Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Well, I don't believe, I know, that same PR machine that promotes Bitcoin and Ethereum also suppresses exposure of XRP, as we know, but also there's another that's never talked about anymore. There is another. I'm not going to play any more of this Tom Lee stuff. He's talking about how Ethereum's underrun. But in the group, we're going to talk about the other. Many of you may not have even heard of it. But it, in my opinion, has been possibly suppressed in the media more than any other. But there was a time when it was not. It might be an opportunity. I don't own any of it, but I see it as a better opportunity than Ethereum myself, and I'll show you why. There's also risks associated with it, like all these things, but I'm always intrigued by the ones they won't talk about, because when CNBC is marketing Bitcoin and Ethereum to me, I say watch out. My gut says watch out. So, we're going to go into the group. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family, away we go.